Why is Higuruma so strong? Why is he so strong? Why is he at the level of a grade 1 sorcerer with just a few days of training? And why does he have a domain expansion when sorcerers like Yuji and Todo don't have one at the start of season 3? Well, we are going to answer all those questions and more, but first, favor from you guys, like the video and subscribe. Alright, now let's get into why Hiromi Higuruma is so absurdly strong. Well, to answer it right from the bat, Higuruma is an awakened sorcerer in the Cullen games, and his curse technique makes him pretty strong. But before he was an awakened sorcerer, you know what he was? He was an attorney. More specifically, a defense attorney. And more specifically than that, he was a very interesting defense attorney. You want to know why he was an interesting defense attorney? Well, it's because he didn't take cases where he thought somebody was just flat out innocent, flat out guilty. He didn't take cases where it was an easy payday, it was a difficult one. No, he took cases where he thought the person being accused was more than likely innocent based off of the story they're telling, their track history, their place in society, you know, all these factors. He's looking at it and he's just like, no, it just doesn't make sense that this guy would be guilty. It's an easy cop out for the prosecutor. It's an easy cop out for the judge. It's an easy cop out for the legal system here, but it's not the right decision. And I want justice to be served, and I don't want it to be served to the wrong person, because Lady Liberty has a blindfold for a reason, all right? She's not going to be partial. She's going to be impartial. She's not going to look at this case and just flat out say, well, he fits the description, right? So let's go ahead and make him guilty. No. But Higuruma's peers frowned upon this. His colleagues frowned upon this. You want to know why? It's because majority of the cases in Japan are going to be guilty verdicts. So if you're being accused of something, more than likely you're going to be found guilty. But Higuruma is an anomaly in that legal system because he wants to fight that. The only problem is that once Higuruma loses a case because the legal system is just going at him and is just against him, so it doesn't really matter if the prosecutor is better or not, because Higuruma's a damn good lawyer. He's actually top of his class when it comes to law school. He was looked at as like a next judge from one of the administrators at the law school before he even graduated, which is a huge deal for the legal system, right? For these law students. But it doesn't matter because Higuruma is fighting a losing battle. And when his clients get a guilty verdict, they look at him with resentment, and that weighs on him. So when Higuruma sees the eyes, sees the emotion coming from his clients and is being yelled at and being blamed because they did not get the sentence that they wanted to, and they did not get Higuruma's word that he would actually help them, because he would say, hey, I think we could do this and I think we could get this, but he doesn't promise them that they'd be 100% innocent, that they wouldn't get any time or anything, right? But they would take his words and they would just think, oh, he means that I'm going to be let loose free, right? Anyways, though, his colleagues really thought that this was taking a toll on his mental state of mind, right? So they thought, hey, Higuruma, maybe you should take an easy case for once. You know, maybe you should back off of all these difficult cases where you think these people are innocent, but they just keep coming out to be guilty. Now, whether they're guilty or not, we don't know, but they're losing in court. So as far as the legal system is concerned, they're guilty. So Higuruma is like, no, like, that's not me though. That's not me. And they thought that, hey, you know, this is going to take a toll on you. And boy, oh boy, were they right. Because after his last client was found guilty, after originally they won that case, they appealed that case, them being the prosecutor appealed that case right away. But originally Higuruma won that case. And after that appealment was pretty much guilty before they even stepped in the room, Higuruma snapped. And unfortunately for the prosecutor and the judge, Higuruma snapped at the right time to do something about it, because Higuruma snapped when Kenjaku did idol transfiguration to change the minds, change the brains, change the body of the people who had cursed techniques but did not have the brain of a jujutsu sorcerer in order to use their technique. But now Higuruma had the ability to use his cursed technique, which we know is Judge Man, the Shikigami, and Judge Man needs a domain expansion in order to use its abilities. So Higuruma by default got a domain expansion right from the jump. It's insane. Imagine having a Shikigami and that Shikigami could only do something in a domain expansion. So it says, hey, guess what? Now you can use a domain expansion. And Higuruma's like, oh, cool. I don't know what that is, but I guess I'm gonna use it. Now, we see that in the Culling games when Yuji and Higuruma are having a conversation about ending the Culling games and using Higuruma's points for that reason. He is pretty much, it's a 180 for Higuruma's personality. He's not about it. He's like, hey, I'm having a midlife crisis, and I'm not going to do that because I want to see how this plays out, because at the end of the day, like, out there in the real world, I mean, I just committed murder, so it's not going to go well for me, right? But here in the Culling games, I kind of am like a god. Like, I'm pretty much taking out people whenever I want. Nobody can hang with me. And, you know, I've only been doing this for a couple days now, so, like, I don't really understand what all this is, but, like, I'm pretty smart, so I can figure it out, right? And that's pretty much what Higuruma does. But when Yuji gets trapped inside of Higuruma's domain expansion, and when Higuruma hears Yuji say that he's guilty for a crime he did not commit, he has a flashback to the moment where he was told he should be a judge because of the way that his personality and his mindset is to defend the weak. Even though now Higuruma did a 180 and he's saying the weak are ugly and, you know, all people are weak, before he was defending the weak. So he did a 180. But hearing Yuji, without cursed energy, right? Just his natural physique and his abilities, you know, being superhuman, basically. Just defending himself with what he can, right? But then hearing him say that he committed the crime in the Shibuya incident, which we know was Sukuna, right? When Sukuna was fighting against Mahoraga, all the people that Sukuna took out as collateral damage, right? We see Higuruma have that flashback. We see Higuruma basically say to himself that this isn't right. I'm making a mistake. And we see Higuruma, at first, he's trying not to sway himself, right? He has the Executioner sword, and he's thinking about using it, but he just can't go through with it. And at the end of the day, Higuruma tells Yuji how he was innocent. He's not guilty. He doesn't believe he's guilty. And he defends Yuji by stating the law that defends Yuji. And thus, Higuruma changes back to who he used to be. So now you have an understanding of who Higuruma is as a person, right? He's actually a really good person. Now let's move on to Higuruma's skill sets and why he is so strong, why he is so absurdly strong and at the level of a grade 1 sorcerer with just a few days of training. So to explain why he is so strong, I have to go back to season 1 and talk about what Gojo said about Jujutsu sorcery. So basically, Gojo said that it's 80% what you're born with as a cursed technique, right? Whatever your cursed technique is 80% talent, 20% hard work, which means no matter how hard you truly work, it's all about what you're born with. So Megumi being born with the 10 shadows is a magnificent trait for him, right? It's a magnificent cursed technique. Maki having heavenly restriction, magnificent for her. Mekamaru having puppet manipulation, but unfortunately for him, his body is like torn apart. I mean, it's great for him for how much cursed energy he has and his cursed technique. It's horrible for him for his body, right? So it's all about 80% talent, 20% hard work, and Higuruma is the example when it comes to that, because Higuruma is 80% talent, 20% hard work, because he was given a Shikigami as his cursed technique, and the Shikigami needs a domain expansion, so it gave him a domain expansion. That's talent right there. He doesn't have to work for that at all. He didn't have to do anything. And the 20% hard work is what Higuruma did to learn cursed energy manipulation. Now, to explain how Higuruma uses his 20% of hard work, it's basically all mental. And the reason I say that is because he is a genius. He is genuinely a prodigy when it comes to the legal system. It's well known by all his colleagues. It's well known by all his classmates, his instructors, everything. Higuruma is a prodigy and a genius when it comes to all things that have to do with training your mind. So the legal system is what Higuruma said he wanted to train his mind in. Thus, he studied and he did remarkably well. Now, that translated over to Jujutsu sorcery. And the reason I say that is because Higuruma took his domain expansion, right? He looked at it, he studied it, and he was able to figure out how barrier techniques work based off of how his domain expansion worked. Now, he reversed engineered the barrier techniques to understand how to form a barrier, how cursed energy can be manipulated into forming a barrier, how you can use cursed energy to use a cursed tool, because he was also given a cursed tool by his Shikigami. So he was given a domain expansion, a cursed tool, and a Shikigami. That's talent. You don't have to work for that at all. You were given that and you were able to use that at a high level. That's your talent right there. That's your innate talent. So much so talent that he was compared to be the next Satoru Gojo. And he might have lived up to that if it wasn't for Yuji being the MC, of course. Now, what does Higuruma do with all this talent, all this skill, all this hard work that he put into his own curse technique? What does he do with it? Does he just walk around, just being an attorney still, even though he committed murder by executing the prosecutor and the judge? Or does he get into combat? He kind of does both. He walks around until he finds a colony that he likes, and then it's, of course, Tokyo Colony number 1, and he exercises every single last cursed spirit that he runs into before entering this colony. Then when he enters this colony, because everybody thinks he's a lightweight, he then gets attacked by 12 different sorcerers inside of the colony, and he takes out every single last one of them, being the first modern sorcerer to accumulate 100 points prior to Yuta, of course, since Yuta hasn't entered a barrier yet. Now, why does Higuruma choose to enter a colony? It's because of one of the rules being that you lose your curse technique and you effectively die if you don't enter a colony within 19 days being an awakened sorcerer. Now, what did it take Higuruma to get to the level that he's at now as a grade 1 sorcerer? It took 12 days for him to understand his curse technique, how cursed energy manipulation worked, build a Gojo level understanding of curse manipulation, find and enter a colony, exercise all cursed spirits on the way to that colony, take out 12 sorcerers, and then pretty much clean up the hunting grounds all around his area and just wait basically for somebody else to find him and challenge him. It's insane what Higuruma can do within 12 days. And after 2 months of training in Jujutsu Sorcery with an actual teacher, the understanding of cursed energy manipulation Higuruma builds is insane. And just to show how insane his understanding of cursed energy manipulation is, let's just look at his domain expansion, because assuming sorcerers in Tokyo Colony number 1 are at the skill level of at least a Reggie Star, assuming that, right, Higuruma had to take out people that are pretty much fairly decently powerful, right? So how does he do that? His domain expansion puts you in his turf, which it should, right? It's a domain expansion. It's your domain expansion. It should put you in the advantage spot. Just like Dagon's is like a beach with water, and Shikigami should put him in the advantage. Higuruma, though, is different. One, there's no violence that could occur inside his domain, which means you are forced to use your intellect, which is already horrible for you. 2, you only get 1 opportunity to speak, and then Higuruma speaks. You have to go first, which means you can't counter anything he says. 3, you are being prosecuted by Judge Man, basically. He tells you what you're being accused of, and you could go one of 3 routes. And really, I don't agree with any of the routes, because the punishments are very severe, no matter how you look at them. And 4, Higuruma has evidence used against you that he's privy to the information. You, unfortunately, do not know what he has in his hand, but in an envelope, he has something to use against you, which pretty much seals your fate. Now, the punishments for this, horrible, absolutely horrible, because either confiscation will occur, or the death penalty, or combination of both. Now, confiscation, if you have a curse technique goes away. If you have no curse technique and just cursed energy goes away. If you get the death sentence, Higuruma gets the Executioner's Sword, which I will touch on later. This is how Higuruma was able to defeat 12 sorcerers plus some cursed spirits. Now, assuming he didn't put cursed spirits inside of his domain expansion, because his domain is called Deadly Sentencing, and it's the first move that we see him use versus Yuji, assuming he uses that versus the other sorcerers first as well. I don't know if he would use it versus the cursed spirits, or if he would just be able to execute them with his cursed tool, which I'm about to get into, because his cursed tool is a gavel, and this gavel can take on many different shapes and sizes, and it can multiply, or maybe he's just that fast where he could throw it, but I'm pretty sure it multiplied into 2 gavels that he just continuously threw at Yuji. But this gavel can do many different things for Higuruma, where he doesn't need another cursed tool or object in order to enter combat. Now, this gavel can do many things, as I mentioned. It can become a giant hammer, a giant hook, a staff for Higuruma to use. It can multiply, and it lastly becomes the Executioner's Sword, but only if you receive a guilty sentence death penalty. Now, the Executioner's Sword is the most powerful weapon in Higuruma's arsenal, because if it touches you even slightly or just once, guess what? You immediately, without question, die. It's absolutely insane how powerful of a technique Higuruma has that allows him to get a cursed tool that can do that to you. And without spoiling anything that comes next in the story, and this is all information that you received in season 3 and in the manga, That's everything you need to know about Higuruma. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments below. I'll go ahead and answer them. But other than that, do me a favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.